Are you stopping your video or are you?
All right, I think we'll just wait another minute or two to see if there's some more people that want to join us, and then we'll get started with this meeting.
Dave, just testing that you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you just fine there, Rob.
Perfect, thank you.
Does the rest of the panel want to just chime in, make sure we're all okay?
I can hear you. This is Christina.
Can you hear me, Dave? It's Stephen here.
Yeah, Christina, Stephen, you're all good. Nice to see you, or not, just hear you.
Good evening, Suzanne Bennett here.
All right. Hi.
And
Okay.
Lenore Mitchell.
Hello, Lenore, welcome. All right, maybe one more minute and we'll get started. All right, well, if it's okay with everyone, it's 5 minutes after and it's probably time to get started on this. More people can join as we move along. Rob, did you want to do introductions or would you like me to do that?
Go ahead, Dave.
All right, well, welcome everyone. Tonight we have the panel with us. So I'm Dave Hout, I'm the CEO of Boudreaux Developments. Joining us is a little bit more in a moderator role is Rob Barrasso, VP of Projects for Boudreaux Developments. We also have Stephen Boyd, the principal architect for the project. And from the city to speak to any process-related questions only, we have Lenore, Suzanne, and Christina. And I think we've got everyone on the panel there. Did I miss anyone? Doesn't look like it. All right, well then I am just going to get started with the presentation here. All right, well, thank you for joining us for the reapplication public information meeting for Boudreaux Communities and Riverbank Landing. All right, so why you're here. So a plan amendment and redistricting reapplication will be submitted by Boudreaux Communities likely this fall. So today we're here to get your feedback on the proposal as we have outlined it so far. It's important to note that this event will be recorded and is subject to freedom of information and protection of privacy requests. This application includes an amendment to the Oakmont Area Structure Plan, the ASP, from commercial and residential uses to a mixed-use district. The redistricting properties are 230, 250 Bellerose Drive and 300 Orchard Court. The proposed DCMU, which is Direct Control Mixed Use District, would allow for the development of a comprehensive planned mixed-use community, including mid to high-rise density residential, commercial, retail, offices, uses, and a village square. So 2 amendments to the DCMU are required tonight. So what can you expect tonight? So you can expect details on the development proposal, so our development concept, the area structure plan amendment, the rezoning from direct control to DCMU, and land use bylaw text amendments. There's a number of opportunities for you to provide feedback on what we present tonight. So in person, the virtual meeting, there's going to be a question and answer right after the presentation. You can also click on our website, which is riverbanklanding.com, and there is a button there that allows you to send an email directly to us. You can do by mail at Boudreaux Communities at 230 Bellerose Drive, St. Albert. You can email directly the applicant, Boudreaux Communities, at daveceo@bo-co.ca. So again, I'm the applicant presenter tonight is Dave Hout. I'm the CEO. I'm here to answer your questions. The questions that you ask tonight, there is a court reporter that is transcribing this conversation and presentation, and the questions will be submitted along with the answers in our application when we do make it to the city. The chat function for this webinar format is turned off, and the feedback for the presentation will be accepted until October 13th. So where are we in the rezoning process? So since June 22nd, we've been back to the drawing boards, having a look at our plans, revising, doing a number of public meetings, a bunch of methods to get feedback back. And we are now in October, and this is the pre-application public meeting. From this meeting, we'll gather the feedback that we receive at this meeting, and we will then move forward, if we have a good idea of community feedback, to go ahead and make a formal application to the City of St. Albert. We would like to make that application in 2 or 3 weeks' time. And at that time, then the city begins their formal review process and technical reviews, make sure that our application is compliant and meets all the standards. At that point, then, it goes to City Council for first reading. And if City Council chooses to advance first reading, it then goes to further council meetings for second and third. The times on that is really dependent on the council schedule, probably early next year, but that is a sort of a best guess for me. Your feedback that you provide tonight and in other ways is used to help inform conversations between us, the applicant, and the city about the proposal. And it also helps inform council on the nature of the feedback received so they better understand the options and opinions of the nearby residents. Our consulting team, we have some of the Edmonton area's best experts. We have ARC Studios and Stephen Boyd, who is one of the panelists tonight, as the principal architect, and a number of other engineering consultants. So site location, Riverbank Landing is a 10-acre site situated between the shops at Boudreaux and the Oakmont community, to the south of Bellerose Drive and to the north of the Sturgeon River. Since June 22nd, we've reached out in a number of ways. We wanted to know what the city liked about our previous proposal, what they didn't like, what we needed to change. So we've done a bunch of avenues. One is open invitation to this email. This email address is in lots of places. daveceo@bo-co.ca. We also have Facebook posts, the ability to do private messages. Our website, as I mentioned earlier, our website has a ton of information. I really encourage you to visit that. And also, if you do visit it, check out the blog section. We have really a whole history there of things that we've gone through. So on our website, we also have the button that you can email me directly. We've had several small group meetings. We've done a survey that was open for a little better than 2 weeks for St. Albert residents. We've put a site sign on the site with the email address again. The Gazette has done several articles on us with, again, ways to contact us. And we've also done an online advertising campaign. So those of you that have been following this development are likely familiar with the two options that we've presented on our website, Facebook, and the survey. And we just labeled them option A and B. And there's a couple strategic differences between these two options and some reasons that we put these forward. Option A is more of a vertical mixed-use community. It has some smaller towers in it, although more towers. It has a little bit higher step back to the Oakmont community. It has the use of the Orchard Court Road for access to some of the site. And if we go to option B is what we would call a more traditional horizontal mixed-use community. The transition to the Oakmont area is smaller. It's at 11 meters and it's townhomes and some small amenity buildings. The site has 2 points of access. And we wanted to present these two options so that we get a good idea of the differences, what people like and don't like about these options. And some key findings on what we found in the various ways that we've reached out is the general public was significantly more likely to prefer option A. The adjacent neighborhoods, which I believe is Oakmont, Erin Ridge, and Woodlands, when presented of the two options, they preferred B over A. The general public was significantly more interested in seeing services like casual dining and patio service in restaurants and bistros versus the adjacent neighborhoods. Those living in the adjacent neighborhoods that preferred option B, when asked why they prefer it, they liked the overall layout and thought it was architecturally appealing. And the adjacent neighborhoods were significantly more likely to accept no changes to the current vehicle access versus the general public, which really liked the idea of 3 vehicle accesses. So this was successful in gathering some information and helping to distill. What we've done is we've identified the key areas of concern or the common concerns that we come across: traffic, height, protection of the river valley, shadows on neighboring properties, green space, noise, density, and affordability are a bunch of common concerns that continue to crop up. The common requests and things people would like to see in this site is a trail system, lots of green space, the patio areas, pet-friendly areas was one that was very common. People also seem to embrace the mix of commercial and residential. And another common theme was a need to get more quality and diverse housing in St. Albert. We've had requests for larger housing units, quality retail professional space, and outdoor activity areas. So what we've done is we've done a quick view on sort of the current site condition. And on this one, it's the area structure plan is low density residential for 300 Orchard Court, and for 230 and 250 Bellerose, it's commercial. But the zoning is DC, so there's no site specific zoning for this and no parameters inside the DC zoning itself. So we compared it to R2, which is a low density residential, and C2, which is general commercial, and the zoning that's at the shops. So R2 zoning allows for 84 duplex units or single family units. It has a maximum height of 11 meters or 2 to 3 floors. C2, or general commercial, allows general retail, gas bars, general service, health service, convenience stores, and then it has a number of discretionary uses, such as hotel, shopping center, or dwelling units above commercial use. Maximum height for C2 is 15 meters, or roughly 4 floors. So we had just a quick massing drawings drafted up to see what the current condition is. Now this drawing is to scale, but I do want to emphasize this isn't an approved site plan or anything like that. This is just something that we did internally so we can start knowing what we're dealing with. And when we had a look at this, if you look at 230, 250 Orchard Court, they're the ones combined on the left. We've put in main floor commercial. We made the assumption that dwelling units above commercial would be allowed under discretionary use. And we came up with about 230 dwelling units that would fit on that site comfortably above the commercial use. If we flip over to the right-hand side of the page and we go to 300 Orchard Court, that we did the comparison to the R2 low density residential. That one was perhaps a little bit easier because the number of units is spelled out in the zoning and it's 84 residents there. So we had a look at this site plan and we thought, okay, what does this do? It doesn't provide the requested amenities that we saw. The river and trail access that is popular, it was replaced by private backyards. The public green space becomes private. The outdoor recreation areas, public outdoor spaces, and pet-friendly areas are really missing from this design. It does provide fast construction. This is it's a very easy buildable plan. It's very low height, so it's reduced height. And then depending on the results of the survey, whether the surrounding community or greater St. Albert, it does put the traffic through Oakmont, which adds the extra access point to the site. So we applied that and had a look at that and ran that against our Riverbank Landing development principles. And these are things that we just believe in the way that we like to develop. And we want to preserve the existing trees as much as we can. We want to reinforce privacy through site design, through innovative architecture. We want all our designs to just include nature and become part of it. And that's just so important. It's going to be a reoccurring theme coming up. And it's really important now. I think post-COVID, you got to be able to get outside. You have to have that room to breathe and just relax in nature. So what we're after is a highly walkable and vibrant mixed-use community. We want to enhance the community services and the access to nature. So according to the Realtors Association, now cities are developing mixed-use environments. They're developing neighborhoods where the hub idea, where you have commercial uses, recreation, restaurants, stores, places where people gather as a community at the center, and residences are included in the mix. So that's how, that's our vision for Riverbank Landing. We would like to see a mixed-use community there. How have your comments helped shape Riverbank Landing? So from our original application, we've reduced the height by 50%. We've reduced the suite count by about 15 to 20%. We've reduced the commercial by 20 to 35%. So all those reductions will help in reducing the overall traffic. We've increased the setbacks. We've moved the building, the very tallest parts of the building, we moved them away from the edges of the site and moved them more into the middle of the site, increasing the transition from single family to multifamily. When we put forward these two options, we wanted to see the differences in what people liked and didn't like. And we continue to listen. And we continue to hear too tall, too dense. So today, we're going to announce that we're reducing our height further. So what is proposed here, we're dropping off some more height, about 3 floors of height. We are reducing the associated number of units with that. So from our original proposal, we're now at about 22% less residential housing units. We're increasing the stepping towards a single family. We've set aside land for future traffic improvements. Traffic is obviously a major issue throughout all of St. Albert, and we've come up with a few ideas on how we think we can alleviate that. A full traffic study will be done once we finalize the site plan and be submitted with our application. Our designs, we had a good look at making sure that the shadow stays as much as possible on site, complementing the existing neighborhoods. We've also decided to respect the request from the majority of Oakmont residents and not drive the 84 dwelling units through there. So overall, we've reduced our density again, and we've also increased the riverside amenities. So the way to achieve this in a zoning, we've gone back and forth, lots of different methods, direct control, a special district. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. We have decided to use the form that we feel is best, which is a direct control, mixed use, with some amendments to those mixed use. And we'll get into the amendments in a moment. Our development concept for Riverbank Landing is a mixed use area, be designated or designed in keeping with quality architectural interest and the current successful communities at the shops at Boudreaux and Botanica. We want to create that live, work, play community that's right at people's doors. And that's whether you live in the surrounding neighborhoods, you want to drive and participate, this community will have areas for you. We want to open up the river valley. Right now, the site basically sits as a private estate. We want to invite the public in and add a lot more amenities. We think that'll encourage people to use the river valley. Things like the seasonal ice cream shop, gazebo, lookout areas. Perhaps it's used for wedding photos. The trails are going to be built to an accessible standard and to the city standard. Public parking, seating, and viewing areas are all incorporated right into the core nature of our design. Our vision, the live, work, play environment, the buildings have a lot of articulation, a lot of green space. We want to see built-in planters in the building. We want to see a really cutting edge architecture on it. Areas that encourage outdoor conversation, the walking paths, the de-stressing in nature, that's just so important these days. And we want to facilitate outdoor events, parking for food trucks, umbrellas, entertainers can come and do an event, and there's a stage for them to be up on, and the food trucks can cater it. Anything that contributes to that vibrant street life and use of nature. This is an aerial 3D, 3D model that we've done. The L-shaped building, I think, is the one that meets all the objects the best. You will notice where I have the 11 floors in red. So this building is massed out at 14 floors there. And we are making the commitment tonight, because we've listened to feedback, to reduce that height to 11 floors. So a new massing drawing will be coming out and renderings, but reduce that to 11 floors. We have a lot of stepping down to the river. The built-in planters will do a lot of green space. We use a more traditional buffer approach from Oakmont. So we'll have townhomes and two-story building there. And then more into the center is the commercial and more green space. I mentioned a few times the built-in planters to give a real green exterior to the building. Innovative design. I can't say enough good things about the creative team at ARC. They're absolutely brilliant at doing designs that are aesthetically pleasing, practical, cutting edge, yet fitting into a community. They're not the ultra-modern glass walls. The building has a lot of stepping. It allows for those planters. It also provides a lot of architectural interest and provides a lot of view corridors back to the river. And we're integrating the trails and nature right into the architecture. We're planning to bring it right up. Village Square. So happy that this plan is able to retain a village square. So it's an outdoor accessible social gathering space, a spot where people can come and play their guitar, cook hot dogs on fire features, just sit and relax in nature. Really an inviting, active street life. So here's our site plan. And if we'll start at building 1, which is in the bottom left-hand corner. So building 1, we envision as a 2-floor restaurant, very similar to the renderings on the original proposal. We think that there is a lot of demand for a lounge with an outdoor patio that faces the river and a restaurant with a patio. This isn't going to be a big chain restaurant. This is going to be a feature for our development, a real landmark. We're going to run contests with local chefs. We're going to find the best one. We're going to help them get set up and have this restaurant be successful. Then between the restaurant and building 2, which is the larger building to the right, that's where the village square goes. And that's also a ravine that feeds into the river. You will see coming out of the village square, we have a lot of our internal trails, and they wander around. They all go to viewing areas, gazebos, platforms. They're designed in such a way that they can be integrated into the Red Willow Trail system, as well as providing foot access to Orchard Court and to Erin Ridge. Then moving across to building 2, this is a very stepped, articulated building. It starts at 15 floors and drops every floor going down, as well as stepping along the river. And it goes all the way down to 5 floors right in the corner of the L. And it just provides, it doesn't block the view. It's a lot of interest, and it allows for all of those green patios that we talked about. And then going back up north, it goes up. So it goes to 6, 7, 8, and then it caps out at 11 floors. Moving on to building 3, which is that small building between building 2 and Orchard Court. That one there is, it's an amenity building for the community, for the residents. That's where we envision seeing things like the seasonal ice cream shack, integrating into a gazebo power, some water features there. A way to encourage people to use the river valley, but also take a rest, sit down, have a break. Moving north of building 3, we go to the 13 townhomes. And these we envision people that really like the lifestyle of Riverbank Landing and the amenities that it offers, but they want to keep a little green space because they really like gardening or have a large pet and they want that outdoor yard. So we think those are the people that will be very interested in purchasing those townhomes. They also provide the buffer between Erin Ridge, Oakmont, and the condominium building. Then moving into the center of the site, we have building 4. In building 4 is main floor commercial, and that one there, we're going to be very selective on the tenant. The use there has to be a bakery or a coffee shop, somewhere that you can go and get your sandwich made and then go and sit in the park behind it and enjoy your lunch in nature. And so we want a use that supports getting outdoors. Above that, we envision some microloft to add housing diversity to the site. And then moving across to building 5, which is a 4 floors kind of triangle building. That one is our medical professional building. It offers services like doctors, pharmacies. It contributes to the live, work, play that we have envisioned for the site. Now you will notice up in the top left-hand corner, our previous versions had the density of 360 to 390. With dropping the floors, we're going to have a reduced level of density. So we're going to be sitting somewhere around that 360 units. The site coverage. I'm particularly proud of this because this site has so much green space. Only 22% of the site is covered in buildings. 36% of the site is public and green space. Anyone can come, walk around, and access it. We're not asking for any parking reductions in our application. There's extensive parking underground through the entire site. And we're working on an increased perimeter green space. So the buffers up against the shops at Boudreaux, we're going to be closer to 5 meters, but as we get close to the single family, we're going to be looking at a 9 meter setback in green space. When you get closer to the river, that varies from 14 meters to 20 meters. So it's well back and allows good use of that green space. Having a look at some of the statistics down there. So the landscape coverage at 21.8%, it's 93,000 square feet of landscaping. Public space and green areas, 156,000 square feet. So we're almost 250,000 square feet of publicly accessible landscaped space. So in order to make sure that this plan comes to fruition very close to what we've envisioned, we've had a lot of discussions with city planning on how can we give some assurances to the community that what we're talking about is actually going to be built. And it's all sorts of different ideas, different zoning types that we've gone back and forth on. And what we feel is the best approach is amendments to the mixed use. So one of the things that everyone's concerned about is height. So if we overlay a height schedule on this, then in these areas, those heights can't exceed what the height schedule says. So if we start at the right-hand portion, which is labeled number 1 on the map, the height we're proposing there is 11 meters or 2 or 3 floors. As we move into the site more, you'll see the area that's highlighted with 2. We're proposing 40 meters or 11 floors. As it comes closer to the river, we want it to step down. So we're proposing 33 meters or 8 floors. And then coming back up again towards the shops, we're proposing 50 meters and 15 floors. Then the balance of the site, the commercial site, we are proposing 20 meters or 5 floors. The floors are a bit of a rough indication because some things factor into it, like is it a commercial space? How high are the ceiling heights in the commercial space? How high are the ceiling heights in the residential area? The meters are obviously an exact measurement. The floors give you an approximation of the size. So they're for comparative purposes. So our DCMU, or direct control mixed use district amendments that we're proposing. So it starts with floor area ratio. So the existing DCMU regulation has a floor area ratio of 3.21. So a floor area ratio is really what determines how big a building you can put. There are setbacks that determine how close to the edge of the property you can build. There are height schedules that say how high you can build it. But the floor area ratio is how big can it actually be. And simply stated, if you have a lot that's 10,000 square feet and you have a floor area ratio that's 3.21, you can build a building that's 3.21 times 10,000 square feet, or 321,000 square feet. So that's the standard that's allowed in the DCMU. For Riverbank, we're proposing a cutback from that, and we will go with a 1.9 floor area ratio, reducing the size of allowable building by about 40%. The maximum height, standard maximum heights in the DCMU are 25 meters. There is an 80-meter Schedule F approved for Grandin Park Village. What we are proposing for Riverbank Landing, and this goes back to the previous slide, is staggered and stepped heights. So building 2 would be in the 50 meter and 40 meter and 33 meter on the current slide, or on the last slide we had. Building 3, the overlay is 11 meters, the townhomes would be 11 meters, the balance of site at 20 meters. So this would be a site-specific amendment that we would make. Minimum setbacks. On standard DCMU, the minimum setbacks are 5 meters. Our proposal for Riverbank Landing is 7 to 14. They go a little bigger than 14 along the river. They are the standard 5 meters between Riverbank Landing and the shops at Boudreaux. So we're not proposing any change for setbacks. In the minimum commercial, and it's kind of an interesting zoning here in the fact that it's minimum commercial. So like our last proposal, we are proposing a reduction to the minimum commercial. We feel that the 6% is a better blend for the residential and what the commercial needs. But it is a minimum, so we'll let the market determine. So the Oakmont Area Structure Plan Amendment. So you can see the 3 parcels here. 300 Orchard Court is in orange, yellow, I don't know, call it yellow. And we're proposing a residential area structure plan to be changed to mixed use. And then the orange, 230, 250 Orchard Court, commercial, and we're proposing that to change to mixed use. Now, I do want to point out one thing here while we're on this slide, because I know that protection of the river is very important to St. Albert's, and it's important to us as well. So you will see here, this is the environmental reserve along the river. So that's an area that nobody's allowed to build. There is another parcel that we do not own that is here, that further sets us back from the environmental reserve. And all the distances and setbacks that I'm talking about are from our property edge, not this additional parcel. So the net effect of that is we are back further from the environmental reserve than our setbacks indicate. Land use district changes. So right now, both parcels are zone direct control. The direct control zoning is a very short 1-page document that basically says it's up to City Council for zoning. We want to change it from a direct control to a direct control mixed use, and with all the amendments that we mentioned previously. Sun shadow study. So current conditions. This was at September 21st at 3 p.m. Now this sun shadow study that we have here is all still on the larger massed out building. It has the full 14 floors on the north wing, not the 11 floors that we've committed to reducing the height to. So the shadows will be better than what you see here, but this is the model that we have at the moment. The idea for this presentation is to gather your feedback, make any further changes, then we will get all the studies done and we will do a complete application to the city. So standard times for shadows are spring and autumn equinox at 9, noon, and 3 p.m. In order to make the shadow study a little easier to understand, we've done a couple things here. We've outlined the boundary of our property in blue. The shadow on our site appears in gray, and any shadow that we cast, any new shadow that is cast off-site, is in yellow. So you can really see the impact of the shadows on this development, or of this development. And here's our shadow spring and autumn equinox at 12 p.m. The shadow study is available on our website if you want to study it further on your own. And 3 p.m. shadows at spring and autumn equinox. Summer solstice, 9 a.m. shadows. And again, they're in yellow, and you can see they just kind of reach just barely across the road. 12 p.m. shadows. And they just hardly come off the property. 3 p.m. shadows. And on this one, we had an additional request by a community member to do a further one. So on this one, we did a 6 p.m. as well. If you want to see how the shadows travel on the site, we do have the full video on our website from the first proposal. And once the design is refined, we will do further studies. So the 2 bits of information are available there. But if you go to our website and you look at that video, it gives you a very good idea on how the shadows track across. 9 a.m. shadows on winter solstice. 12 p.m. shadow in winter again. And our 3 p.m. shadow on winter solstice. So what you see is a result of sort of our commitment to the site, what we believe honors the legacy and what society is moving towards, as well as a compromise on all the feedback that we've received to date. The heights have been reduced several times, the mass has been changed, the green space has increased, the nature has evolved to pet-friendly areas as well. But we believe that a mixed-use community is the very best possible use for this land, benefiting not only the immediate neighbors and the people that live there, but the new town square will act as a gathering point for all of St. Albert. You go to the shops of Boudreaux on a sunny Saturday afternoon, there is just lots of people out enjoying the shops, enjoying the patios. They're having a good time. We would like to build on what has started there in the shops of Boudreaux. So that ends the formal part of our presentation. We will have, the whole session's being recorded, and we will have a link to the entire session on our website if you want to review it further. And now we will go to the question and answer portion.
Excellent. Thanks, Dave. So I'm Rob Brasso. I'm going to act as the moderator to work through the open floor forum. So we're working our best to run this as close to the in-person meeting, but doing it virtually. So if you want to ask a question, click the raise your hand on the bottom of your screen, and it'll put your name up into a queue on my screen here. When it's your time to talk, I'll say your first name, and then you will also get a rectangular box on your screen, and a message will come up that says, the host would like you to unmute your microphone. If you click on the blue unmute now button, you should be able to speak at that time. If for some reason we get a bit of a delay in your response, we'll move to the next person, but we'll track your name and try to come back to you as quickly as we can. And obviously, in order to allow as many people to speak, we'll be maximizing each person's time to 2 minutes. At the 2-minute mark, your mic will be muted, and we'll do our best to address your comments and questions. So I do see a couple hands up here. So let's get started. And we are gonna go to Ken. Ken, go ahead and push your blue button.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
What is the anticipated build-out, Dave, for this development? As if it's accepted as proposed, what do you anticipate, given current market conditions, for the eventual build-out?
Oh, good question. We would like to start in the spring. We do have a waiting list of people that want the Riverview units. Traditionally, we're absorbing about 75 to 80 units a year. So if we go 75 into, I'll go 80 units into 360. You think I would have this answer for you, Ken? My apologies.
4 to 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, 4 to 5 years. Yeah, 5 years probably. 4 years, it's going to be a little quick for that.
Would I be able to ask another question or no?
Sure.
Okay, real quick. In the last development, you had a projected tax base of about 2.6 million. They figured about 1.1 million would be used to provide services to the development, leaving a net to the city of about 1.4 million. Do you have any figures like that for this development?
We don't yet. We really want to get a good idea on what the development is, and then we will do all the reports. So those will be coming in with our submission to the city. And as we get those, we'll put them up on our website too, unless there's a reason that they don't want them released.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, and we are moving on to Neil. Go ahead, Neil.
Hi there. All right, thanks. Yeah, I guess maybe just my first question. I missed the first couple of minutes, and then I caught the rest. So am I to gather that you've chosen option B? That's the one that you're proceeding with, I'm assuming, because that's what the rest of the presentation was about.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we'll reduce the height somewhat, tweaked it somewhat, but in substance, yes.
Okay, thanks. So I guess a couple questions about that. The Red Willow Trail access looks fantastic. I love the connectivity there. But I guess, I don't know if this is a question of you, Dave, or of the city, or even if it's appropriate for this forum here, but long term, that connectivity that you're showing for Red Willow Trail system, that would be owned by the development, would it not? That's not city property. And so long term, what guarantees the city access to that if it does become incorporated into the Red Willow Park Trail system? And I'm just thinking, I know we were in Toronto this summer, and there was river or lakefront property there that used to be connected to the trail that the private condo development has decided they no longer want connected. So you kind of have this nice walkway all along the lake, and then it's fenced off for the private enjoyment of those residences. So I guess that's what I'm thinking. Long term, what guarantees access for the city through that site?
Yeah, that's a good question. We haven't had the conversation with the city. I can say as a developer, typically those agreements are handled through mutual access agreements which caveat the property, and the city and the condo are part of it, and they can't be changed without 100% consent. So I would explore some method like that. But again, I'm speaking just as a developer, not on behalf of the city. I'm not sure if there's anyone in the city that can answer that question for you, Neil. I'll throw it over to them and see if there is.
Lenore Mitchell, Dave, you're right. We would look at caveat. And at this point, we really haven't had that discussion. So I think it's a good point Neil's made, and something we can further explore.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. What's the procedure here? I've got a couple more questions. Do I go back in the queue, or do I keep going?
Let's flip it over to Rob. Rob, what do you think?
I only have a few hands up, so based on that, why don't you do one more, Neil, and then we can transition to the next person on the list.
Okay, sure. The next question I had, I know you spoke about the one building there with the restaurant and the patios facing the river, the one patio, the one restaurant facing the river. But if I look at, and I don't have the plans right in front of me, but the large building, the one that stepped back, the main building there, if you will, the first floor of that, or the river facing side of that on the first floor, is that all intended to be residential? And I guess where I'm going with that is, we don't have anywhere in the city right now where we have any kind of river facing patio, any kind of river facing commercial. We don't have many opportunities left to do that. And so I guess my concern or feedback would be with you've got the one building, one restaurant, that's excellent. But I guess my preference or my feedback would be to have more of that commercial, that river facing commercial along the first floor of that main building as well. But am I to understand that what you're proposing is all residential there?
No, the corner of it has commercial as well. At this stage, the commercial, so we have the restaurant, and then it flows across, restaurant flows across the village square, goes into the residential building, but the main floor of that residential building on that end cap is commercial. So it's not the entire length, but it is a good chunk.
Just the end cap, nothing on the river facing side or on the trail facing side. So nothing along like where it says, yeah, I see the blue on the map there now. So yeah, that's the only commercial in that building, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, I've got a couple more, but I can go back in the queue there if you want.
Yeah, just put your, I'll disable your talking and just put your hand back up and we'll put you back in the queue. Thank you. All right, and we're moving on to Robin.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, you bet.
Hi, I was wondering if, because this is actually a hill, essentially, it goes down low from Botanica all the way up the Oakmont Hill, if we can get a rendering with that being used, because clearly you're not going to make a big wall and level it flat like Botanica, because as of right now, 11 floors doesn't sound so crazy, or 15 floors doesn't sound so crazy high when you're comparing it to Botanica. But with it being on a hill, it's going to look way taller than what you're proposing. And so I'm wondering, is there any drawings or anything allowing for us to see how high those buildings really are going to be compared to Botanica? I guess that's the only thing we can compare it to now, because that's the tallest building on that site. And if you could also, in those renderings you've made, have Botanica standing tall, because right now it just looks like a flat parking lot. So if you could, somehow incorporate that for us, because 11 and 15 floors is going to look like 20 to 25 when it's on a big, huge hill.
Okay. All right, thanks for the question, Robin. We will certainly do that. And again, I sound like a broken record. Once we get this, we know exactly what it's going to do. We will spend the money and get those renderings and include Botanica in there. But I can address your hill comment, and you're right, there's a significant grade to that site. But when we say 11 floors, and when the city measures a building, they find the absolute lowest point, which would be on the river, downside of the hill, and that's the point they start from and go up 11 from there. So as the hill goes up, we don't get 11 floors at the top of the hill. Let's assume the hill is 5 floors big, then at the top of the hill, we're only allowed 6. So the city measures from the very lowest point to the very highest point, and you can't exceed it regardless of ground elevation.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, we're moving on to Ruby.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, you bet, Ruby.
First, thank you for doing this presentation, and thank you for listening to the citizens. I think this is a huge step forward. I have 2 questions. First, around this property and the red barn and the legacy of the whole family. I haven't seen anything in this presentation that mentions them, or any incorporation of the historic value of the red barn and this property. And my second question is, at one time there was some talk of seniors housing, and does that form any part of this?
So a couple of good questions there, Ruby. The Holes legacy is something that we do want to honor. Like most people in St. Albert, I've had interactions with Lois myself, and she really was a special person. So we will put aside an area. I haven't done anything on the plans yet, but as they come forward and get more involved, you will see that. And the seniors component, absolutely. That was one of the things that came out really strong as needed, is not assisted living, but really independent seniors. If they choose to have a meal, they can. If they don't want to, they can get housekeeping if they want or not. We see that as having part of the vision here. Now, whether that's a part of the larger condo building or whether it's some lofts up above, we're not sure yet, but there is absolutely a need for seniors.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, we are going to Jerry. Go ahead, Jerry.
Sorry, Jerry, you're muted there. I can't hear you.
Okay, no, sorry. Can
How
you
many
hear me
times
now?
have we had this conversation?
Yes. Hi, Dave, Rob. Yes, like Neil before, I have a few questions. I won't take up more than my 2 minutes, and I'll go back into the queue. First, a comment. All of the renderings that were part of this presentation showing the walkable, livable area, I noticed all were in the summertime in the 1 or 2 nicest days of the year. There was no mention or renderings that showed what it would be like in wintertime, which is at least half of the year. Question that I have for you is that you mentioned the survey, and will the public be seeing the results of the survey per each question? And will those results, if they are provided to the public, show the answers from the neighboring communities versus the city at large?
Okay, a couple of good questions there, Jerry. Deal with the winter first. Yeah, you know, obviously there is half a year. We want to maximize the summer. There's going to be some winter features, like the covered gazebo will help. We also will have a fire feature that people can gather around. I don't know if it's going to be like what the shops have right now or not, but something like that. So it'll encourage use in winter, but of course winter is cold and it's going to be used less. The survey, again, good questions. The survey wasn't the only tool that we used to assess the information. We gathered it from everything from surveys, small groups, emails we received, and we've distilled it from there. Now, part of the survey was market information. What exact types of uses would you like to see here? What's the demographics of people we're going after? So there's a lot of proprietary business information in that survey that we spent thousands and thousands of dollars to get. So we're not really prepared to release the whole survey because, you know, we paid for that intelligence. That's ours. What I can tell you is the comments that we do use from time to time, like in that one page, were directly from the summary that Y Station gave us, and we didn't edit them at all.
Okay, hope my first 2 minutes aren't up. I want to make another comment. You had mentioned that you'll be carrying out a traffic impact analysis in the coming weeks or so. Traffic obviously is a huge issue. It always has been for this area. We understand that the traffic at the intersection has already reached capacity. That's before the introduction of any development on Riverbank Landing. We also are aware that the city did a request for proposal for improvements to the intersection, the Bellerose intersection, but those are focused on safety and not any future development, including that which may be north of the city since the annexation.
Okay. All right, Jerry, I think you were asking basically how traffic's going to be handled. And it's once we know what the development is, we will do the traffic study. As far as the city's stance on what the proposal is and what they did, I'm really not qualified to speak on city decisions. But what I can tell you is last time we did this, there was a number of improvements that were recommended in the traffic study. are improvements. If they need to be done, this development, and we will go ahead and either pay for or call, depending on the rating of the intersection at the time. So once we have the development, we know exactly what we're going to do here, then the traffic study will be done and it'll have the recommendations and impact that. Rob?
All right, we are heading to Hugh.
All right,
Hugh,
just before we do that, Rob, I'm getting an internet connection unstable. Am I coming across okay?
you were choppy a little bit there, but it seems like it's clear again now.
Okay, all right, that's good. Just let me know then if it happens again, please.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Go ahead, Hugh.
Yeah, I'm mentioning about the trail that may come down along the properties on the north side of the river, right from your area to the footbridge on the trails. Now, when the original owners on these properties built, the city promised that there would be no walkway access through the properties of Orchard Court to the river valley. Now that was not followed, and there is a paved walkway between 2 yards where people do come down through that. Now that area, the riparian area, is a huge waterfowl nesting area. There are various types of wildlife that live there, and the place where a trail would have to go is going to greatly impact the privacy and security of the properties along the river. And I'd kind of like to know what your feeling is on that. But the wildlife part of it is important, but the privacy and security and safety of the people that live along that area is important. And could you please comment?
Sure. All right, thanks. Good question, you. I mean, obviously, that's city land, so we can't guarantee that they will connect the trail there. Our perspective is that right now, there's this gap between our property and then the homes at Oakmont, and I see, you know, refuge and all sorts of stuff in there right now that's left as sort of a wild area, but it's being used by who knows what, kids or transients, I have no idea. But I'm seeing a lot of garbage, I'm seeing a lot of just not proper care. I believe that if we beautify the whole area, it's a benefit to everyone. Now, the trail system will just build it in such a way that it can be connected. I'm not aware of any promises that the city made or wildlife studies that may impact, nor has the city made any promises to me saying they will do it. That's their decision. We would like to see a trail connected on the north side, but that doesn't mean that it's going to happen or that we can do it or guarantee it. We just believe that quality development brings up the entire neighborhood, both safety, aesthetics, and security.
Excellent. All right, we're moving on to Donna.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Don, you bet.
Okay, it's Bill, Donna's husband. So
okay.
We're logged in under her computer. So my first quick question, well, first comment would be in order to address Neil's question about the trail system, what you could do is you could dedicate it as municipal reserve, and then it would be in the city's hands. You wouldn't have to worry about it being bantered around between legal agreements. But my question is for staff, and could they outline for those listening the process and the timing that we would anticipate from today forward? And I do have another question when...
Hey, sorry, I was just trying to make sure that I can actually be heard. For those that don't know me already, I'm Suzanne. I'm one of the planners in our planning department. And Bill, you want to know the timelines of when this would get to council? Or
yes, and the various steps in the process.
So it would be mostly the same as before, where we would accept the application. We do circulations both internally and externally to residents like yourself. We've got the full mailing list from the last public hearings. We've got a lot of people on that mailing list that would get notified that an application has come in. We will have all of the application documents on our website again, so making them very easy for any members of the public to take a look at. Timeline wise, I think it's usually about 3 months before it gets to first reading. Might have to look at Lenore again for that, for the timeline for circulation. And similar to the last time this came in, we've got to kind of buffer around Christmas if this is coming in within the next month or two, like Rob has mentioned. Because as we had the issue before where the holidays got in the middle of the circulation period. So we always try to work around that as well. But I think we'd be probably looking at around 3 months before we've got a report ready and circulated.
Okay, could maybe one of the other staff be more precise? Because my recollection of that is once you receive the application, it has to be deemed complete. Once it's deemed complete, then there's the statutory circulations, which go to other agencies like natural gas and the school boards and health unit and all that sort of stuff. But then they have, if I remember correctly, about a 30-day turnaround. During that, I would assume you'd send it out to the public as well. Then you guys need to analyze the input that you get, say another month there. Then on a council meeting for first reading, and then after that, a public hearing. So maybe somebody has a, say,
when you said to council, I thought you meant first reading when they said.
Yeah, well, so let's say Dave gets it to you November 1st. What timing?
Well, you pretty much listed all the timelines. It's for LUBs, it's 20 days for deemed completion. For ASP circulations, it's a 20-day circulation. But like I mentioned, and like we did last year, we extended that because of just where the date lines fell, and we have that option. So we're usually looking at the 21 days plus mailing, of course. MGA says 7 days for mailing. So we add that on there. So that's the month of circulation. And for review, it's really going to depend at this point how different it is from the first application, because a lot of this we have seen before.
Okay, thanks. That's close, but I'll leave it at there.
Bill, I think
I'll just interject that, until we get an application, Bill, we can't give 100% because we have to look at it first to deem it complete, right? And then it is the 21 days. Yeah. And sometimes, depending, we might need more information. So, we can't give 100% until we get going in the process.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. No, that's good. Thank you, Lenore.
Thanks, Bill. If you don't mind, we're going to just move on to the next. If you put your hand back up, we'll try to get back to you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, and we are going to Sandy. Sandy, go ahead.
Hi, Dave, Rob.
Sandy.
You've mentioned that you're going to do another traffic study. I would ask that traffic study incorporate both pre and post COVID traffic numbers, because who knows where we're going to be in a few months, whether we'll be locked down again. And secondly, your building height schedule in the, I'm going to make reference to your larger building as the V-shaped building. In the bottom of the V, you've indicated on your conceptual plan that it's going to be 5 floors, but on your building height schedule, you've indicated it's going to be 8. So can you speak to the discrepancy there?
Yeah, absolutely I can, Sandy. We need to be able to put a schedule in place that we can stick with a vision and actually build. And I don't know how to do such survey precision off of such early drawings to get it so we're not outside the building height schedule. So the idea there was we'll just mandate some steps, but they're going to be a little bit more general in nature. And then we'll go forward with the vision that we have. And I understand that that might give you a little bit of unease. I'm not sure of another way to do it. And one thing that I guess would maybe help appease your unease is if you go back to the early days of Botanica and have a look at our very first watercolorings and then have a look at what we built. And those were pre-zoning. We built pretty much what we said we're gonna. So I can see if there's a better way to give more assurance and still give us the ability to build off of such preliminary drawings. Because the problem is that you go off these concepts and then you get zoning, and then the drawings advance, and then you get your development permit. So it's I don't know, it's a bit of a strange process. But I'll have a look, see if we can refine it a little bit better.
Okay, and my last question is, all of these heights that you're indicating, you've indicated that there is underground parking. So where you're at 11 floors or 15 floors, does that incorporate the underground parking, or is that in addition to?
It includes, and correct me, I'm not sure if there's anyone from administration that can answer this question better than me, or Rob, you might know. My understanding is the minute the foundation comes above the ground, at the lowest possible point, it's measured from there to the highest possible point. So if all the parking is underground and doesn't poke above, it doesn't include it. But if the parking poked above the ground, then it would include it.
So if you had 1 floor of parking that poked above the ground, then you would have 10 floors of residential and 1 floor incorporated in your 11 floors.
Correct.
Okay. And my last comment / question, I appreciate the fact that you've reduced that 1 corner to 11 floors, and it looks like it's going to be about 3 floors or 3 sections of 11 floors and then step down. What is the transition between that and the townhomes that you're proposing? Because it doesn't seem to me that that's going to be very appealing for people to buy a townhome that's shaded by an 11-floor building.
Yeah, another good comment. The transition is really landscaping, and then the townhomes. They're back quite a ways from the building, and the shade field moves fast enough that there will be people that don't view that as a detriment. But yeah, the transition is landscaping. There's no other building in between there.
Excellent, thanks, Sandy. All right, we're going on back to Ken. Go ahead, Ken.
Okay, appreciate this. I would just echo, like others have, that it's good to have this type of a briefing. I just want to clarify this issue about the relationship on the control of building height. Dave, I believe you mentioned that where the building first comes out of the ground, it's from that point to the top of the building that, or the top of the building that when you say 11 stories, we're talking about the lowest point and 11 stories above it, correct?
That's right, no matter where that 11 stories is. So from the very lowest to the very highest, not including things like a mechanical penthouse, but real floors, yes.
Oh, so a mechanical, like on the top of that second phase of Botanica, those top towers, they weren't included in part of the building height?
No, mechanical stuff isn't included in building height. So, I mean, if it's a substantial structure, it would be, but as a rule, things like chillers or just a little penthouse to house a boiler are not included in building height, but they're very, very small.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and we're going on to Neil.
All right, thanks very much. I guess probably more of a comment and maybe a request than a question here, just some feedback. I'd logged in tonight intending to support proposal A, just because I liked the building massing better up against the river. And I'm a little bit concerned with proposal B, just with the size of the building fronting the river. you know, I really like the Botanica development from the parking lot side, but having spent a lot of time on the river this summer, it's quite startling from the river how massive the Botanica building is. How many floors is the Botanica building on that, I guess, the southeast corner of that Botanica 2?
That's 10 floors.
So given that that's 10 floors, 15 floors, I mean, I appreciate the staggering, the green roofs, that all looks fantastic, and it'll certainly help. But I'm still concerned about just that length of that building and the massing up against the river and what it looks like from the riverside, from the park, from the Red Willow Trail system. And so maybe when it goes to council, maybe when it's presented, if there's an opportunity to have a view. I know you've got a concept drawing on the website there, but something that what is the building going to look like from the trail, from that south side of the building, or even from the river, and how high that building reaches up. So I guess, I don't know, that's my concern, is just the massiveness, the literal massiveness of that building up against the river. So anything you can do to break that up and try and reduce sort of the starkness of the impact like Botanica 2 has on the river valley would be preferential in my opinion.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that comment, Neil. I've looked at Botanica too and thought the same thing myself. So this building, we certainly will provide you with a very detailed, when it comes to City Council, or even when with our application, a very detailed rendering of what it's going to look. This building has a couple unique features to help break that mass up. And one of them is that three of them, I guess. So it steps down along the river. It also steps out towards the river, so it's not a straight wall. And then what Ark and Stephen have done is such a fantastic job, is it also steps down from the building itself. So the parking lot side is actually a little higher than the subsequent phase below. So on the river, you have stepping in 1, 2, 3 directions, and those are all rimmed with planters. It'll be a good looking building, but I do hear your concern to reduce the mass. And it's something that we've heard before, so we'll have a good look at it and see if there's something else we can do as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and we are going on to Andy. Go ahead, Andy.
Well, sorry, Andy, I think you're on mute.
I got it there.
Right on, thanks.
Okay, thank you. I'm interested in just a little more info on the traffic study that Jerry spoke about. That is there a projection of time frame, like a 10-year and a 20-year projection in that study?
Yeah, so we haven't done a traffic study for this one, but on our old proposal, it went out, I believe, 30 years, and it encompasses all the ancillary areas and all the forecasted growth. Rob, is it 20 or 30 years? Do you know off the top of your head?
I think it was 30, and then they do a multiplier of a certain percentage every year over that year of forecasted growth coming down the roads that connect to us.
Okay, good. Also, being a very outdoorsy person, I walked the trail on the north side of the river, so I'm very interested in the trail development that you've proposed. And in addition, I feel that there should be coordination with the city. Mayor Herron explained that she felt that citizens were all interested in to have that trail developed. So I feel that they should be tied together and not proceed with one without having put together a full plan, so that you don't years later take a look, oh, we've got this darn bottleneck we haven't thought about. We should have did that a lot earlier. I feel the city should be involved in planning that out right now, along with your development plan.
I'm meeting with the mayor tomorrow, and I will pass that along. I know she's passionate about the trail. She hasn't made any commitments or anything like that, but I know that it's near and dear to her heart, and it just makes sense. If we can plan it, why won't we? So we're talking anyways, is what I can say right now.
Okay, good. And lastly, the heights that are proposed in your scheduled development. I was looking at those schedules, and I slipped on the name of the person who asked about a rendering of the buildings with the current Botanica height. I think that would be quite important for us to be able to visualize that. I currently, as I said, I currently walk the trail along the river, the grassy trail behind the Oak Ridge Orchard Park development. And I think that the heights of the current Botanica, for me, that kind of is the what my expectation would be. So your proposal looks like it might be a little bit higher, and it takes away quite a bit from that type of trail development. And that's all the questions I have.
Yeah, okay. And it's, I mean, you bring up a good comment, Andy, and it's one of the things that we always wrestle with. So there is a portion, certainly that's higher, and there's a big portion that's lower. And we're trying to reduce the mass of the building. So if we drop the whole thing to 10 stories or so, we could likely have the same density, but it wouldn't be as interesting. So we're weighting those two things. So I appreciate your comments like that. It'll help us determine what's the best course to go forward.
Excellent. We are moving on to Ruby.
Hi, I just, with regard to the traffic, the city's currently in the process of having a consultant review and make recommendations on a huge traffic study that's already been done. So the current recommendations that will be going forward, in my understanding, to City Council soon, is that all residential areas speeds will be reduced to 40. Arterial roads, for the most part, will increase to 60. And so that arterial increase in speed goes from Evergreen up the hill past Oakmont and Erin Ridge. The road narrows to 1 lane each way in that area. Some changes have been made and are being made along the roadway to create trail crossways, crosswalks, formal crosswalks, instead of just walking through the ditch from Erin Ridge to Oakmont by Eldorado Drive. That's already complete. They do need to put in the push button flashing signals. But with regard to this development and the increasing traffic, is there a plan, or is the city developer working with the city for the need for basically 2 turning lanes at Boudreau and Bellerose, from Bellerose onto Boudreau South, and 2 lanes to go straight through? Because at the present time, with no development and Botanica 2 not fully occupied, many times you can't even get through the light at Evergreen if you wish to turn left onto Boudreau. You wait 2 or 3 lights because the second lane, the 2 lanes going straight through, are backed up with people wanting to turn that can't get into the turning lane. So that really needs to be addressed, as well as the synchronizing of the traffic lights.
Yes. I can't speak to this proposal because we don't have the traffic study done yet, but on our previous proposal, the double left turn lane from Bellerose onto Boudreau, I always get those 2 roads mixed up, but I think I got it right this time. That was one of the recommendations. And so those recommendations will come out. I don't see why it wouldn't be a recommendation this time around, but again, the study will be done once we know exactly what we're building.
All right, we are going to Natalie.
Hi, Natalie. I think you're on mute still.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. But it still
Okay.
shows you're on mute. How'd you do that?
I have no idea. I think it was magic.
All right.
Sorry about that. My question also relates to the traffic study. I'm just curious if that traffic study will be done in advance of your application to the city, and if that will form part of the package that's submitted to them.
Yes and yes.
Okay, excellent. So just on that note, one further follow-up question. So if that traffic impact assessment shows improvements that are required that are not necessarily viable within the road right-of-way that's there, or you can't meet certain level of service requirements, would adjustments then be made to the development to be able to meet that, or would the development be restricted until improvements such as that could be made? Just curious about that.
Yeah, so couple things there. So any of the costs related to development specific improvements are generally borne by the developer. We're not going to go ahead with this if we can't get people in and out. It's going to be a massive fail. It'll be like the Cameron developments. What was it, South Edmonton Commons, before they put that overpass in? Nobody wants to go there. So it's in our best interests to make sure that the traffic works. So let's wait and see what the traffic study does. And if there's improvements that are development specific, we pay for them. Sometimes if they're, you know, a little bit of shared things, it's failing right now, we would make it go worse. We share costs with the city, but we do have the ability to make those improvements. And if the traffic study says you just can't fit this, we won't do it. We would be silly to. If people can't get in, we can't sell.
Right. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. I think I did have one further follow-up, but can't think of it at the moment. So if it comes to mind, I'll raise my hand again.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Natalie. All right, we're gonna go back to Donna, or I think it was Bill actually that was talking.
Yeah, hi, it's Bill again. Hi there. Just first question, would the city's undergoing annexation that's going to occur sometime in the next 6 months to a year, I would say. Looks like there's agreement with Sturgeon County. In that annexation area, there's some area to the east of the city that will enter the city from on Bellerose. Do you think you will have to take that into consideration with your traffic study?
I know that the last traffic study did capture traffic coming from Sturgeon County. So it's really, really very comprehensive. And I'm going to say two things here that are likely going to get me shot, but I'm going to say them anyways, because I think they're important to remember. One of the comments in the traffic study was that while this development is a significant development, when you factor in the overall growth that's forecasted in the whole region, it doesn't really impact it that much. There's improvements we have to make as a result of this development, but it's not a major contributor to the traffic flow through all of St. Albert. The other one is that 127th Street has to come online sometime. It just has to. Now it's going to be 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, I don't know. But when that comes on, then really the traffic issues get resolved. We're starting to see some of the north part of that on Ray Griffins Drive go in. The chunk that's in Sturgeon County is a bottleneck right now. The overpass is all there for the Anthony Henday. So maybe this annexation will help speed that up. I'm not sure, but that's the long-term solution.
Thanks very much, and I agree with you. If 127th Street were to happen, it would make things a lot easier for this development and others in Oakmont. I'm going to go back to the Y Station survey, and several of us participated in that, and you're now indicating that the information is proprietary, and I don't believe that the prelude to the survey indicated that we were providing information for marketing purposes or development purposes, but more so for future development. So I just want to question you again, Dave, on, I guess, the optics of you keeping that under wraps, and for many of us, it'd lead to questions about what's contained there that you don't want to share.
Sure. And I got a few comments on that, and I get where you're coming from. But the whole thing sort of changed halfway through. So originally we were going to do these design charrettes, and then we got Y Station involved to be a facilitator. And they said, look, our association says you can't do these design charrettes right now. We're not going to do it. You should do a survey. So we worked with the focus group, and they said, okay, fine, let's do the survey. We presented the survey, and then they said, we don't like the survey. We're not talking to you anymore, and we disagree, and they left. Well, now we're in a scenario where we have to look at the survey and say, well, now what do we do? So we decided to use this survey for, at that point it changed. We decided to use this survey for marketing information, as well as gathering information. And this isn't really development by vote. We want as many ways for people to communicate to us as we can, so we can take all these ideas from, there's no reason the survey is more valuable than someone that sends me an email or people that participate in this meeting. And so we take all this information that we gather, we discern it as best we can, and we say, we think this is acceptable. Ultimately, it's still up to City Council.
Yeah, I would just conclude with the optics of you not sharing it and the fact that I completed a survey that I felt was going to be public, and maybe I didn't fully read the prelude, leaves me with a bad taste in my mouth.
Okay.
All right, we are going to Lay.
Hey there, it's actually Lee. Can you guys hear me?
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so I know there's been a lot of discussion around the height, and I'm not going to dwell on it, but I just wanted to echo some sentiments that were brought up with regards to relating the height in your proposal to the Botanica. I think it would be very valuable to be able to see in relation how that would actually stand and what the visual would look like. I know Robin was the first one that mentioned that, and Andy echoed that as well. So I'm just putting my hand up to say that I agree with that, and it would be really nice to see that visual.
Yeah.
The second and my actual question, and forgive me if this is something that you've already discussed in your previous proposal, but I know you've mentioned moving from direct control to direct control mixed use. And my worry is that I don't understand this stuff, and if we are now agreeing to a rezoning without fully understanding what that rezoning means, it worries me that we're signing off on something that we don't get. So I guess my actual question would be, is this the only way that we can have commercial building space in this area developed? Or I guess, yeah, what does it really mean if we're moving from a direct control to direct control mixed use?
Okay, I'm going to answer your easy question first and say we will commit to doing a rendering with Botanica in there. We agree with you. We just don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on something we're not going to do. Once we know what we're doing, we will do that.
Wonderful.
The zoning, does Suzanne or Lenore, do you want to take that, or you want me to have a stab at it?
I'll start off because I know zonings get a little complicated, especially the naming of these two particular ones. So direct control as a zone, the way that St. Albert has it, is the zone itself is pretty much a carte blanche for council to say how development should be built, should be designed, and should be planned out. As it is right now, the zoning on these three properties is direct control, which would, to develop under direct control the district it is right now, the applicant would have to go to council basically with a development permit application and have all of their architectural building drawings done, know all of their servicing plans, and a lot of intricate details, which they could do. It would take a lot more of engagement before they get to that point, but it's an option. The direct control mixed use zone does have a list of permitted uses, which are, some places call them a by right use, where as long as you meet the heights and the setbacks and all of the architectural details, you will get that permit. It also includes some discretionary uses, which are like the maybes. Maybe you can get it, maybe not, depending on if the site can handle it, if there's enough setback, doesn't negatively affect adjacent landowners too much, that type of thing. There is options where the applicant could choose to maybe split up the site and zone partially to commercial, partially to residential, but you would get something similar to that. The diagram that was in, I think, the earlier part of the presentation, where it showed a whole bunch of duplexes on one site and a whole bunch of commercial on the other. It sort of splits the uses a little more strictly, I guess I should say, whereas the mixed use site is meant to be one full property that is designed to work as a whole. I hope I didn't make that too complicated.
Okay. No, thank you. I appreciate that. I just, from the standpoint of someone who really doesn't know much about this, as I'm sure it's pretty apparent right now, but I just, it worries me when we're discussing rezoning of a space that's so close to where I live and not fully understanding what we're saying yes to and what the potential implications down the road could be.
Yeah, and that's understandable. All of our zones and the entire land use bylaw is available on the city website to view. So even if you want to review that and before you send your comments to the applicant, and if you can't find it, just shoot me an email at sbennett@stalbert.ca and I can send you a link.
Wonderful, thank you.
Excellent. And we are going to Sandy.
So Dave, you've made a comment about the focus group stepping away, and I'd just like to clarify on the record that the focus group stepped away because we didn't believe that the direction of the survey was ultimately going to be fair, balanced, or unbiased. That's just a comment that I'd like on the record. Possibly somebody from the city can answer this question for me. I'm wondering when a process, something is being evaluated, the estimated vehicle trips per dwelling unit, can you tell me what that might be?
Sorry, Sandy, I was jotting down some of your comments. Can you repeat the second half of that question?
The estimated vehicle trips per dwelling unit?
Ooh. Actually, I do not know the math on that, and we do not have Dean Schick with us.
It depends. So I'm not a traffic engineer, it's Lenore. So for example, the only number I actually know is single family residential is about 10 to 11 trips per household. And then for apartments and commercial, they have a lot of factors that they put in based on different models. So when the traffic study is done, those numbers would be in there to show you what the count is based on the type of use.
Okay, so basically at this point in time, if we use the lower of your numbers and expected that might be a little high, so 10 vehicle trips per dwelling unit per day.
But that's on single family. That's single family and they're not building, single family. So that would be a high number.
Okay, so if I did say eight vehicle trips per dwelling unit over the townhomes versus micro versus the other sizes, that's 2,880 vehicle trips per day in addition to what is already congesting Bellerose and Boudreaux. I guess I'm probably expressing concern for a lot of people that 360 dwelling units is still too high for that particular site, given the lack of accessibility and the traffic issues that already exist.
So thank you for that comment. And when we we'll see what the traffic study shows us. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Sandy. I'm going to Cynthia.
Hi there.
Hey, how's it going?
Very well, thank you, and thank you for putting on this presentation and getting our feedback. Basically, I don't really have any questions at this point. I just wanted to echo the concerns of a couple of folks that have already voiced a concern about traffic. I'm really happy to hear that you say that you would go ahead if traffic couldn't be accommodated appropriately. I do fear, though, that if this proposal does go ahead, and it would force the widening of Bellerose and to 127th Street, and cause a lot of other traffic issues. I also kayak on the river and walk along the Red Willow Park path, and I already have a concern about Botanical Tea and its visible impact on the skyline in the river, and how it affects the natural feel of that area. So I just wanted to echo, those are my major concerns with the development, is the traffic impact and the how it affects the natural area. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Cynthia. Can I ask how it affects the natural look or the environment itself, or both?
Both.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
We will, for environment protection, we will hire an environmental company. They're a consulting engineer that will put in recommendations for the course of construction to make sure that we don't negatively impact the wetlands. So that will be in place before we go ahead and build. So that helps at least hopefully alleviate some concern. But thank you for your comments.
Okay, we're going to Roger.
Hi.
Yes, hello, thank you.
Hi, Roger.
Dave, I wonder if you can share a couple of your ideas on how the traffic issue may be handled at the intersection Oakmont and Bellerose.
Okay, so going off of the previous recommendations, what they recommended was a double left-hand turn lane, an extension of the left queuing lane that is on Bellerose going on to Boudreau, a widening of the intersection at Boudreau and Bellerose, a dedicated right turn lane, north arrow. So it would be 2 straight through, 2 left, 1 right. An extension of the queuing lane is what they recommended for improvements at that intersection on the old proposal.
But exiting the development, vehicles have to turn right to go up to Oakmont Drive. So what, how are they going to get back down to St. Albert?
Okay.
Sorry, Baudry.
Yes. So what we're proposing here is to put intelligent lighting on the Evergreen Drive so it talks to the Boudreau lights. We are proposing to widen Evergreen Road, which is a road between our property and Shops of Boudreau and feeds into Botanica. And we're proposing doing a double left on there, and then 1 straight through and 1 right. So that should allow for enough queuing on the Evergreen Road to get through 1 set of lights onto Bellerose. Again, this is off of an old study. The new one will come out, but that's what the previous recommendations were.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we are going to Julie. Julie, go ahead.
Yeah, hi there. I just wanted to point out that I'm echoing Sandy's concerns about the traffic, the future traffic study, because I really think that the numbers right now, or what could happen with cold and flu season coming up, will drastically affect the amount of traffic on the road. I'm a little bit confused about how having a double left turn, not the double left turn out of out of Botanica, but the 2 straight throughs, will that be funneling traffic into the Evergreens?
I'm sorry, Julie, the 2 straight throughs, I'm sorry, the 2 straight throughs are on Bellerose and Boudreau. So yeah, be the 2 left and 2 straight through there. It would only be 1 straight through for the Evergreen Road.
To go into Evergreen. And then I guess I want it known that I still feel the 360 is too high for that area, even with the traffic intersection improvements that are already coming without that development there. I think that that's just a ridiculous number.
Okay.
All right, we are going to Ken.
Okay, Dave, I appreciate this. This comes back to the zoning request, and Suzanne provided I think, a pretty clear explanation of the difference between a direct control, mixed use. And what my question is pertaining to here is, very typically with developers, they take a gamble. You know, you pays your money, it takes your chances. And the previous owners of these parcels had accepted the zoning that was there. You've come as the new owner, and you've got a new vision, and you're putting this proposal before the community to go ahead and get some insight before you make a formal application to council. And having gone through all of this, I guess what I'm concerned about is with the direct control mixed use, and it appears to provide you with a flexibility in your negotiations with the planners and administration subsequent to council approving it, is the direct control mixed use provides the limits, the upper and lower limits of what the development may be. And in that regard, heaven forbid, but should you get the acceptance and then subsequently get cold feet about following through on the development, to what extent would the subsequent owner of that property be obligated to stick within the concept the concept limits that you've got out there? Like you pointed out that the floor footage going from 3.2 down to 1.9. Would this be something that is hard and fast? And maybe it's a question more for the planners, Lenore and Suzanne, to answer than yourself. Thank you.
Sure, Ken. It's I can answer it, or Suzanne, if you would like to. Okay. Oh, there she is.
I can try. There was a lot in there. Do you want me to start with the DC part or the switch of ownership?
I think his big concern, Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, is if this zoning goes through and we sell the property, is it binding on the person that buys it?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
The zoning would be, because if any new ownership wanted to do something other than what they can in the DC, then they again would have to come and try and apply for a rezoning. The way we have it right now, we don't really have a way of locking in the concept plan. We talked about that with the applicant when we were looking at the direct control permit options to see if that was feasible. But right now we haven't found a great solution for locking that concept plan in, other than the height schedules.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Lenore.
Yeah, the height schedule, and also he was doing some site-specific notwithstanding clauses.
Okay. So in that regard, if I may just ask this question real quickly, a lot's been said about extending the Red Willow Trail along the north side of the river, and there was a point made that perhaps through a conversion to a municipal reserve or potentially using as a caveat, has the city ever entered into an agreement with the developer for access easements, which are a lot more binding than a caveat?
Well, access easements are registered on title by caveat.
Well, legally, there's a distinction between a caveat and an easement.
Maybe we're thinking of different types of caveat.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll hold off on that technicality. I'll back off. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to Jonathan.
Hello. So my big issue is the overall trust in the developer, and as well as it relates to the planning department. So the application would go in, as I understand it, that would change the zoning. And then once council votes on changing the zoning, the majority of the decisions rely on the planning department within the city. And my big issue is the planning department voted in favor of the previous proposal. And that really scares, I would say, all residents, given that council voted 7-0 against that proposal. So what kind of assurance do we have that if council approves some change to direct control mixed use, what assurances do the residents have to ensure that the planning department isn't going to give you a bit of an open letter to just design and build what you want?
Okay. Good question, Jonathan. On the first proposal, they didn't endorse the whole thing. So there was a couple amendments. One is to change it from DC to DCMU, and the other was the height schedule that was giving us the 100 meters. And planning recommended that they do not give us the height schedule. So they basically chopped us back there. So there was no free slate there. But really, the planning department has to work within the parameters of the zoning itself. So the uses that are listed in the DCMU, if we agree to things and council says, yes, I agree to the amendments at like the 1.9 floor area ratio, the planning department can't give anything more than that 1.9. So they would have to operate within the 4 squares that council approved.
I think the council also did in the public meeting did raise the concern that they're just changing the bylaw, but they're actually not. In some ways they actually liked your design, but there was nothing to bind you to what design build you were going to do. And it was just, hey, this was our design build for Botanica 1 and 2, and we kept to that. So, obviously our name is on the plate here to move forward with that. So it's a bit of a just trust us sort of thing. And again, I think that the planning department, there's questions regarding the relationship between the developers and the planning department. I would say that.
Well, I would have liked it if they supported our previous proposal, but you're frustrated with it, and so are we. You got to think that there's a way that we could bring a proposal forward and say, hey, this is the rendering, this is what we want to do, this is the way we want to do it. So the easy answer to that is direct control, because city council then operates as it replaces the planning department. They are the development officer. So great. So we said, let's do direct control. Well, the problem is that expires in a year, and this project's more than a year. So we can't start a project under that. So then we're left with trying to fit something that is unique inside of some standard shells. I'll be quiet now and let Suzanne speak. You've unmuted there, I've noticed.
Yep, but you did kind of merge into where I was going to get it really nailed down, such as Edmonton does. They really, like for Edmonton, for example, uses a lot of direct control extensively through their city, and every bit of the development is controlled by council through those direct control permits. For a zoning such as this, as I mentioned earlier, the mixed use district has a list of permitted uses, discretionary uses. Large developments like this have to go through an urban design review. There are a lot of parameters that our development officers must follow when they are issuing any permit.
So I would leave this as, I accept that a development needs to go in that area, and the developer has the right to develop that. I just strongly feel that it needs to work with the surrounding community, and I don't see both proposals doing that. So I'll leave it at that, and we'll take this up in the next phase.
All right, we are going to Jerry. Go ahead, Jerry.
Yes, thank you, Robert. My questions are to administration. First, I have three quick questions. One is an explanation regarding section 1.10 in part 1 of the land use bylaw, subsection 7, where it talks about an applicant must wait 6 months from the time a proposed amendment was refused by council. Second, I would like an explanation over in part 3 of the land use bylaw, the variance section, section 3.14. It talks about the development officer having discretion to relax the height setbacks, that type of thing, up to 25%. And I want to know whether that would apply to this development, even with a height schedule. And thirdly, I note that there's an infill development guidelines for the city. I realize there is for established neighborhoods, but I understand that the city is in the process of developing or producing an infill development plan and also a River Valley development plan. I'd like to know the status of those and whether they will be available for public view before the application is submitted. Those are my questions.
Sorry, I was muted still. I can start with 10.1. So section 10.1 of the bylaw does state that the applicant cannot apply the same or similar development within 6 months of a refusal from council. So with the last public hearing with council being June 22nd, that puts this property at December 22nd. We have had discussions with the applicant about how we will need within part of the application, basically the justification of how the new application, when it comes to us, is different, should be considered by administration and by council, and how it is different specifically by addressing the concerns that were brought up by the public. I think for the info, Christina, if you could maybe jump in on the timelines of those. Maybe.
Hi, sorry, I'd been kicked out before, so I can add some thoughts. Those studies are currently being undertaken, but the bulk of the work will not be done probably in time to inform this application, because what first needs to be done is the completion and adoption of the municipal development plan before we can go forward with the rest of those documents. So timing wise, this may occur. I would suspect that this application will go forward before those other subsequent guidelines are complete.
So will the infill development guidelines that are in place right now apply as a proxy in the meantime?
No, because those are for single family and semi-detached. They're for low density.
They're infill development guidelines.
But they're very specific on the purpose of them.
Okay, what about the variance in part 3, section 3.14? And
I'm just trying to look that up because I don't have my land use bylaw sitting here. So I would rather get back on that because I don't have the sections in front of me to be able to answer this.
Yeah,
I think I know what he's talking about. Sorry, I keep trying to talk while I'm still muted. You're asking if the development officers will give a variance to height schedule?
Yes, basically.
From what we were advised on previous applications is that if there's a specific height schedule, like similar to what is downtown already, we've already got a schedule F in our land use bylaw. Because those heights are approved by council, our development officers will not vary from the approval given by council. So shortest answer, no.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we're getting close to our 8:30. So I'm gonna go to one more person here. We'll go to James and then we'll close this off. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert and Dave, for taking questions in this meeting. I've got a concern. Sandy brought this up about the height of the smallest portion of the large building being, you stated at 5 floors, but being up to 8 floors. And that's the closest portion of your development to the current residents in the 200 block of Orchard Court. And to go from 8 full floors and then 30 feet later, you've got single family homes. I see a concern with that. I would like to see, 300 Orchard Court remain as it is currently zoned. I understand why you guys want to change it to DCMU, but there are many reasons to leave it as it is currently zoned. As Jerry just spoke, other things are lost with those bylaw amendments in regards to infill and restrictions. So I just, like to hear your comment on that. And I just would also like to mention, as Sandy mentioned previously, that Dave and Rob, when we were working with you with the survey, we worked for hours and then 3 hours with you guys to go through that survey. And at the very end, after that 3-hour meeting, it was when it was clear the survey was still biased, you decided to go ahead with it. And it was after that that we decided to leave the table because of the lack of transparency. It wasn't before that. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Okay, all right, thanks, James. So you had a couple comments there. One, and I'm just summarizing, correct me if I'm wrong, you would be more comfortable if there was a further height table in there restricting the very corner right closest to the river. If there has to be a height table, you want more detail, is really what you're asking. Is that correct?
Well, you've got it at 5 stories in one area, but then you're asking for 8 stories there, and that's the closest area to current established, single family homes that we have. And to jump from a 2-story family home and in that property there where the height limit is currently 11 meters maximum, and you want to go to 8 stories right in that area, that's a big concern. That's not I don't think a suitable enough transition.
Okay, I think that's a fair enough comment. We'll see what we can do to kind of address that. So thanks for that. And then the general comment that you'd like to leave Orchard Court as is, and that there's benefits for doing that. And yeah, I think that's one of those things. If you prefer single family and townhomes, then there's a benefit there. And if you prefer, mixed use communities in open river valley, there isn't. And, I guess we just approach it differently than that. So, this is kind of the process to go through. Try and give each other as much certainty as we can. We've given a lot. And, I think the process has been beneficial for everyone. So I hope you see it that way too.
Excellent. All right. Well, we're just a little over 8:30. So I think that will be the conclusion of the question and answer and of the public meeting. Thank you everybody for attending and for all the good questions and the feedback. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah, thank you all. Thanks. Bye.